Hey chemistry! Sorry for how late this video is. I'm still trying to figure out my filming schedule with teaching and everything that's going on in classes right now. Hopefully in the future I'll get these uploaded the same day that we go over it together in class. But thank you for your patience this week. So what we did in our class meeting on Friday was we went through the second part of this lab and then went over a Kahoot. So let me go over the second part of this lab, and then I will post the Kahoot under resources for this assignment in case you would like to go over it also. So for part 2 of this lab, it says go back to the micro tab of the simulation, and you're going to predict if each compound in the table will break apart or stay together when mixed with water. First thing it says to do is to write down your predictions and then use the arrows to find them, test them, and fill in the box below. So because not everybody had a periodic table on our Zoom meeting, I made all of the metals here bold and blue, so you can see which atoms are metals and which are non-metals. So for this first one, we have sodium and chlorine, so a metal and a non-metal, so hopefully you know that bond type is going to be ionic. Sucrose is all non-metals, so that one's going to be covalent bonds in that metal, or in that molecule. Calcium chloride, we got a metal and a non-metal, so ionic again. Sodium nitrate, we haven't talked about if there's more than 2 atoms, but if there's a metal and a non-metal, regardless of how many atoms you have, it is ionic. And then glucose, C6H12O6, all non-metals, so all covalent bonds. So then you make your predictions. I would go up here and look at what happened. So, which do you think dissolve in water, ionic or covalent? Make sure you write down the predictions before you do the simulation. The point is to predict. So, let's go to the simulation now and we'll test sodium chloride, sucrose, calcium chloride, sodium nitrate, and glucose to see what they do when you add water. So, sodium chloride. I think we're on the micro tab. Yep, here we go. So add sodium chloride and then explain what happens when they mix with water. Alright, so based on what I saw, this broke down into, I was about to say atoms, but this over here tells me that they're charged, so it breaks down into the different ions. That's what I would put on my chart. Then remove this one and test your next one. Second one is sucrose. So add this one and let's see what happens. Okay, so something broke down because these definitely broke into smaller pieces. But you can look at this key again. Is it the ions or is it something bigger? So this broke down into smaller pieces, but it doesn't break down all of the way. So I would write that. It also asks on that chart, is it an electrolyte or not? Remember, electrolytes are ions. And based on this table, I would say no. Okay, so it asks you to try them with the other chemicals too. So calcium chloride, let's shake some of this in and see what happens. Okay, so it looks like that one fell apart more than our sucrose did. And then if we look at concentrations, it tells you what did it fall apart into, atoms or ions or larger molecules. So keep doing it with the rest of them. So here's sodium nitrate. This one kind of does both. So the pink balls bouncing around are sodium ions, but we've got these blue and red structures that stay together. So put that in your words. And then I can see over here that both of them are charged, so both of them are ions. So that's what you would use to determine, is it an electrolyte? Last one is going to be glucose. You'll be hearing about this one a lot in biology because glucose is blood sugar. So you shake some of that in and let's see what happens. All right. Did it come apart? If so, what did it come apart into? Make sure you put that information in your table. Okay, so then we've got some questions here. Using the periodic table, predict 2 other combinations of elements that can make an ionic compound. Explain your reasoning. Guys, it doesn't have to be a real ionic compound. You're just going to pick a metal and a non-metal. Well, it wants 2 combinations, so you're going to do it twice. But pick a metal and a non-metal and be like, these things could bond, and it would be ionic because one's a metal, one's a non-metal. Same thing with number 8. Pick combinations of elements that could make a covalent compound. Don't worry about the numbers. You can just pick, carbon and oxygen and be like, they're non-metals, so they would. So part 3 says to open that final tab. It says the red and white molecules represent water. Describe what happens when you add sodium chloride molecules. Reset and add sugar. And then it asks, how many ions do you think calcium chloride makes when it dissolves? Explain your reasoning. Okay, so last tab is the water tab. And just like the last one, you follow the directions and write your observations. So here's the salt molecule we're putting in. Okay, we can see the ions separate. And it dissolves in the water. Alright, second thing is we add our sucrose molecule and see what happens. Okay, so it breaks down into 2 smaller molecules, but not into individual atoms. So, after you make your observations, you're going to write it here. Number 11, I'd just like you to make your best guess. How many ions do you think calcium chloride makes when it dissolves, and just explain why you think that. The last 2 are asking you to identify different properties of ionic and covalent bonds and tell me what kind of compound is being described. So you find an unmarked white crystalline powder in the lab. It has a high melting point and is an electrolyte when dissolved in water. What kind of compound do you think it is, and how do you know? And 13, same thing, you find another unlabeled compound, it's got some characteristics, and you describe whether you think it's ionic or covalent, and how you know that, which property was most convincing to you. If you have any questions, please email me or at me on Teams. I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend, and I hope to see you soon. Bye!